Have you ever been in a conversation where someone said something so cutting, so calculated that you froze completely? Your heart started racing, your mind went blank, and later, hours later, you thought of exactly what you should have said. That moment of silence wasn't weakness. That wasn't you failing. That was actually your nervous system being hijacked by someone who has spent years perfecting the art of making people feel small. And today, we are going to talk about why the most powerful thing you can do to a manipulator is not fight back, not argue, not cry, not explain yourself. It is simply to respond with calm. Because nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, terrifies a manipulator more than someone who refuses to give them the emotional reaction they came looking for. Stay with me, because what I am about to share with you is going to change the way you handle every difficult person in your life from this point forward. Welcome to Stoic Code, the place where we talk about real psychological tools for real-life situations. If this is your first time here, I want you to hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications, because we release content every week that genuinely helps you protect your peace and your mind. And if you have ever felt like certain people just know exactly how to get under your skin, this video is specifically for you. Like this video if you are ready to stop letting manipulators live rent-free in your head, and let us get into it. Let us start by talking about what manipulation actually is at its core. Most people think manipulation is about lying, and yes, sometimes it involves lies, but real manipulation, the kind that leaves you questioning your own reality, the kind that keeps you up at night, the kind that makes you feel like you are always doing something wrong, even when you know you are not. That kind of manipulation is about emotion. It is about controlling how you feel so that the manipulator can control what you do. Think about it. When someone guilt trips you, they are not trying to present facts. They are trying to make you feel so terrible that you will do whatever they want just to make the guilt stop. When someone gives you the silent treatment, they are not processing their feelings in healthy solitude. They are deliberately making you feel anxious and desperate enough to come crawling back and apologize, even if you did nothing wrong. When someone twists your words and says things like "you always do this" or "you never care about anyone but yourself," they are not trying to have an honest conversation. They are trying to flood your emotional system so completely that you lose the ability to think clearly and defend yourself. Manipulation is an emotional weapon. And like any weapon, once you understand how it works, it loses most of its power over you. Now here is the part that most people do not know. Manipulators do not actually want a fight. They want a reaction. There is a very important difference. A fight means two people engaging equally. A reaction means the manipulator is in control and you are simply responding to whatever they set up. Every guilt trip, every passive-aggressive comment, every sudden burst of anger, every cold withdrawal, all of it is designed to produce a specific emotional reaction from you. Fear, guilt, shame, anxiety, confusion. Those emotions are the fuel that manipulative dynamics run on. And when you respond with calm, when you simply refuse to produce that fuel, the entire dynamic collapses. The manipulator loses, not because you fought them, but because you did not play the game at all. And that drives them absolutely crazy, because their entire strategy depends on you reacting. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine a woman named Diane. Diane has a mother who has always been emotionally controlling. Every time Diane tries to set a boundary or make a decision, her mother disapproves of her. Mother cries, brings up everything she has ever sacrificed, and says things like, "After everything I have done for you, this is how you treat me." For years, Diane would crumble. She would feel overwhelmed with guilt, apologize and give in. The manipulation worked every single time because Diane responded with emotion. She would get defensive. She would try to explain herself. She would cry and say she was sorry just to end the unbearable tension. But one day, after discovering the philosophy behind Stoic Code, Diane decided to try something different. When her mother launched into the usual performance, instead of getting swept away, Diane took a slow breath. She looked at her mother calmly. She said, "I hear that you are upset." And then she said nothing more, no apology, no lengthy explanation, no tears, just calm. And her mother did not know what to do. She escalated at first. She pushed harder. She tried different emotional buttons. But Diane just kept that same quiet, steady energy, and eventually her mother ran out of steam. Because there was no emotional reaction to feed off of. Diane did not become cold, she did not become cruel, she simply became unshakable. And that one shift transformed their entire relationship dynamic over time. This is what Stoic philosophy has understood for centuries. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic thinkers who ever lived, was born into slavery. He had absolutely no control over his external circumstances, and yet he became one of the most psychologically free human beings in history. How? Because he mastered the one thing no one could ever take from him: his response. He wrote that people are disturbed not by events, but by their judgments about events. Read that again slowly. You are not upset by what someone does to you. You are upset by what you decide that action means. And when you change your internal interpretation, you change your entire response. This is not about becoming emotionless. Stoicism is constantly misunderstood on this point. It is not about suppressing your feelings or pretending nothing hurts. It is about creating just enough space between the trigger and your response that you get to choose how you show up. That pause, that tiny space, is where your power lies. Now let us talk about why calm is so specifically terrifying to a manipulator. When you respond with anger, the manipulator can point to your anger and say, "See, look how crazy you are." When you cry, they can dismiss your tears and feel like they have won by making you fall apart. When you over-explain yourself, they can twist every single word and use it against you. When you beg or apologize, you confirm to them that their tactics work and they will use those tactics forever. But when you respond with calm, none of those things are available to them. There is no anger to point to. There are no tears to dismiss. There are no scrambled words to twist. There is no desperation to feed off of. You have essentially shown up to a game they designed, and you have played a completely different game. One they have no strategy for. One they have no training for. And in that moment, without meaning to, without even raising your voice, you have communicated something incredibly powerful. You have said, "Your emotional weapons do not work on me. I see what you are doing, and I refuse to be moved by it." Here is something important to understand though. Being calm is not the same as being passive. There is a massive difference between someone who is calm because they have genuinely processed their feelings and someone who is calm because they are suppressing and will eventually explode. True calm is grounded. It comes from clarity. It comes from knowing your own worth well enough that someone else's emotional manipulation does not destabilize your sense of self. When you are truly calm in the face of manipulation, you are not a pushover. You can still speak. You can still say no. You can still set a boundary. But you are doing it from a place of clarity and strength rather than from a place of panic or reactivity. Think of it like being the eye of a storm. Everything around you might be chaotic. The manipulator might be spinning and escalating. But inside you are still. And from that stillness you can respond wisely instead of just reacting impulsively. Let me give you another example. Think about a workplace situation. Marcus works with a colleague named Tyler who constantly takes credit for shared work, undermines Marcus in meetings, and makes cutting comments that are just subtle enough to seem like jokes. In the past, Marcus would get frustrated visibly. He would argue back, which made him look emotional. He would try to correct Tyler in real time, which made him look petty. He would go home feeling exhausted and defeated every single day. Then Marcus began studying something that completely changed his approach. He learned that his emotional reactions were actually giving Tyler power. So Marcus made a decision. He would stop taking the bait. When Tyler made a cutting comment, Marcus would simply pause, look at Tyler briefly, and either say nothing or respond with something so neutral and measured that there was absolutely nothing for Tyler to work with. When Tyler tried to take credit in meetings, Marcus quietly and calmly presented documentation that showed his contributions without drama, without accusation, just facts delivered with steady confidence. Slowly, the dynamic shifted. Tyler lost interest in targeting Marcus because Marcus stopped being a satisfying target. And Marcus gained a reputation among leadership as the most composed, reliable person in the room. Calm did not just protect him from manipulation, it actually advanced his career. So how do you actually build this kind of calm? Because I know some of you right now are thinking, this all sounds great, but in the moment I just lose it. My nervous system takes over, my heart starts pounding, my voice shakes. How do I actually get there? The first thing to understand is that this is a practice, not a personality trait you either have or you do not. Calmness in the face of provocation is a skill. And like any skill, it improves with intentional repetition. The very first step is to learn to recognize the moment when someone is trying to provoke you. You will feel it physically before you can articulate it mentally. Your chest might tighten, your stomach might drop, your jaw might clench. These are your body's signals. These are your early warning system telling you that something manipulative is happening and your nervous system is preparing to react. Instead of fighting those sensations or being carried away by them, just notice them, name them silently, something like there it is. There is the tightening in my chest. That is my signal. That awareness alone, just that tiny moment of conscious recognition, is the beginning of the pause that gives you power. The second step is to breathe before you speak. This sounds almost embarrassingly simple, but the physiological impact is real. A slow, deep breath activates your parasympathetic nervous system. It literally sends a chemical signal to your brain that you are safe. That signal reduces the flood of stress hormones that make you reactive and brings your prefrontal cortex, the part that makes good decisions, back online. So when someone says something that hits you, before a single word comes out of your mouth, breathe. Just one slow breath. You do not even have to be obvious about it. Just let air come in slowly through your nose and release it gently. That one breath is not just meditation advice, is neuroscience. It changes the actual chemistry of your response in real time. The third step is to prepare a neutral response phrase ahead of time, because when you are caught off guard, your brain defaults to its most well-worn emotional pathways. If those pathways have always led to defensiveness or tears or apologies, that is where you will go again under pressure unless you have something else ready. So decide in advance on a few phrases that give you time and reveal nothing. Things like, "That is interesting," or "I am going to think about what you just said," or simply These are not weak responses, they are strategic ones. They communicate that you heard the person without giving them any emotional fuel to work with. They buy you time to access that calm core instead of reacting from the chaotic surface. And they often completely derail a manipulator who was counting on an immediate emotional explosion to hijack the conversation. The fourth step is to remind yourself in the moment what you are actually looking at. When someone is manipulating you, it is very easy to get lost in the content of what they are saying, to get pulled into whether you really did say that, or whether you really are being selfish, or whether their version of events is actually accurate. But if you can pull back just slightly and recognize the pattern instead of the content, everything changes. Instead of thinking, "Oh no, was I really too selfish?" you think, "This is a guilt trip. This is an emotional control tactic. This is not an honest conversation about reality." That reframe does not mean the other person is automatically wrong about everything. It just means you are not going to let their emotional pressure campaign be what determines your sense of truth. You are going to stay in your own grounded reality rather than being dragged into theirs. The fifth step, and this one is crucial, is to not feel the need to fill silence. Most people are so uncomfortable with silence that they rush to fill it, and in doing so they give manipulators exactly what they want. They over-explain. They apologize just to break the tension. They offer concessions just to make the discomfort end. But silence is actually one of the most powerful responses you can give. After a manipulative statement, a quiet, steady look that communicates you heard them but you are not moved, that can say more than any carefully crafted argument. It communicates that you are not afraid of the discomfort, that you do not need to frantically manage their emotions or your own, that you are solid. And manipulators who depend on your discomfort to stay in control find that kind of steady silence deeply unsettling. Now there is something else that Stoic Code really wants you to understand about this topic, because it goes even deeper than just techniques and strategies. The reason calm responses are so powerful is not just tactical, it is philosophical. When you respond to manipulation with calm, you are making a statement about who you are and what you believe about yourself. You are saying, "I do not need your approval. I do not need to convince you. I do not need to win this argument to know my own worth." Most manipulation works because some part of us is uncertain about our own value. We feel the need to defend ourselves because we are afraid that maybe they are right, maybe we are too much, maybe we are not enough, maybe we really are the problem. And manipulators can sense that uncertainty the way a predator senses vulnerability. They target it with precision. But when you have done the internal work of genuinely knowing who you are, of getting clear on your values and your worth independent of other people's assessments, manipulation stops landing the same way. It is not that it stops happening. There will always be difficult people in the world, but it stops destabilizing you, because you are not dependent on the manipulator's narrative to feel okay about yourself. You have your own narrative, a solid-rooted, internally sourced sense of who you are, and that is something no guilt trip or cold shoulder or twisted accusation can take from you. Let us also talk about something that does not get discussed enough, which is the aftermath of choosing calm. Because the first few times you respond to a manipulator with calm instead of your usual reaction, things might actually get harder before they get easier. Manipulators escalate before they give up. It is like a slot machine theory. If you have been putting out emotional reactions like coins every time they pull the lever, and then suddenly you stop, they are not going to quietly accept that the machine is broken. They are going to pull harder. They are going to try more extreme tactics. They might cry louder or get angrier or bring in other people or try to make you feel even more guilty. And if you do not know this is coming, it can feel like your calm approach is making things worse, but it is not. What you are actually seeing is the manipulator's panic. They are scared, their strategy is failing, and they are desperately throwing everything they have at it. Your only job during this escalation phase is to stay consistent, to not let the escalation convince you that the calm approach is not working. Because it is working. The escalation is proof of that. And then something remarkable happens. When they realize that escalation does not work either, one of two things occurs. Either the relationship slowly shifts into something more honest and mutual, which is rare but does happen, especially with people who are capable of growth, or the manipulator loses interest and moves on to someone whose emotional reactions are more available and more satisfying. Either outcome is actually a win for you. Either you end up in a healthier dynamic, or you shed a toxic relationship that was costing you enormous amounts of energy and peace. Neither of those outcomes is possible when you keep handing over your emotional reactions on demand. There is one more thing I want to share before we bring this home, and it is something that changed the way I personally think about difficult people. Most manipulators are not cartoon villains. They are not sitting in a dark room somewhere cackling about how they are going to ruin your day. Many of them learned these patterns in childhood as survival strategies. They grew up in environments where direct communication was not safe, where vulnerability got punished, where manipulation was the only way to get needs met. That does not excuse the behavior, not at all. Harming other people is not justified by your own history of being harmed. But understanding the origin can help you stop taking it so personally. When someone guilt trips you, or gives you the silent treatment or twists your words, they are often running an old program, a script that was written in their nervous system when they were young and frightened. Your calm response is not just good for you. On some level, it actually refuses to participate in keeping that old, broken script alive. It introduces a different kind of energy, one that does not reward the manipulation and therefore does not reinforce it. Whether that ever helps the other person grow is ultimately up to them. But at minimum, you are not making things worse by being another chapter in their story of emotional warfare. So let us bring this all together. Manipulators are terrified of calm because calm removes their power source. They need your emotional reaction. They need your fear, your guilt, your confusion, your desperation. Without it, their tactics evaporate. Calm is not passivity. It is not weakness. It is not pretending nothing hurts. It is the strongest, most grounded, most powerful response available to you. And it is something you can build. You can develop it through practice, through awareness of your physical signals, through breathing intentionally, through preparing neutral phrases, through learning to sit with silence, through doing the inner work of knowing your own worth clearly enough that someone else's manipulation does not get to rewrite it. You are not responsible for managing a manipulator's emotions. You are not obligated to explain yourself until they are satisfied. You are not required to produce the reaction they showed up for. You have the right to be still. You have the right to be calm. And that right, once fully claimed, is one of the most liberating things you will ever experience. This is the philosophy that Stoic Code is built on, the idea that your mind is your strongest tool, and that protecting your inner world is the foundation of everything. Every relationship you are in, every difficult conversation you navigate, every moment when someone tries to pull you off balance, the quality of your life comes down to the quality of your inner state. And your inner state is always within your reach to cultivate and protect. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below and tell me about a situation where you wish you had responded with calm instead of reacting. Or if you have already started practicing this and you have seen a shift, share that story too. Your experience might be exactly what someone else in this community needs to hear. And if this video gave you something to think about or something to work with, please share it with someone in your life who is dealing with a difficult person right now. You might not know how much they need this today. Hit that like button, leave your comment, and share this video with someone who is ready to stop being moved by people who do not deserve that power over them. We will see you in the next one.